Thank you, Tracy. Be thankful. Good way to end that. I'm thankful today that we have some very special guests joining us. Not guests, family members, I guess we would say, joining us. And so I'd like to introduce them to you, and I'd encourage each of you to wait to applaud until we finish each group, or else the goodness of the Speaker of the House to remove the time for session day from 9 to 9:30 will be wasted. The House meets every Thursday in the bipartisan prayer breakfast at 8 o'clock, and I've been privileged to be a co-chair of that. But in the Senate, they meet on Wednesdays, and they've met for many, many, many years, 80 years or more, as has the House. And so I want to welcome with us today the Senate Bipartisan Prayer Breakfast co-chairs, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Senator Mike Rounds. Please stand and be recognized. And we're delighted to have the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, here today. The Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield. Please. And I'm told the Administrator of NASA, former Senator Bill Nelson, is here, but I'm not seeing. There you are. There you are. Observing the principle of not going to the front seat, but waiting till you're called, right? Delighted to have former House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer and Speaker of the House Emerita Nancy Pelosi here today. Then the House leadership is here. Delighted to have them join us today. House Minority Whip Catherine Clark, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, House Majority Leader Representative Steve Scalise, an evidence that prayer works as well, and Speaker of the House Representative Kevin McCarthy. Please stand and be recognized. And then finally, we are so delighted to have Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
We are honored to be joined by our nation's President. Mr. President, last year you spoke at this very same breakfast about finding purpose through the pain of losing a piece of your soul. As you and I both recognize the birthdays of our late sons this month, I will remind you, as you have reminded me, that Bo and Jordan will always be with us. President Biden, I know how important that your faith has been over the course of your career, how you pray to keep that faith, and how your grandmother reminded you to spread it too. As you spread that faith today, it is my privilege to welcome you back to the Capitol. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, President Joe Biden.
Thank you, Lucy, for that introduction. And I might add, as I said last year, for your courage. You know, like many of you in the audience, Lucy lost a piece of her soul. And it's, you know, while the pain never fully leaves, you eventually find the purpose to carry on, and that's what you've done. You've done it magnificently. And you're doing it with your service in the Congress, and we're a better nation because you've kept the faith. And by the way, the reference reference to my grandmom was every time I'd walk out of my grandfather Finnegan's house in Scranton, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." My grandmother would yell, "No, Joey, spread it. Spread it. You do a heck of a job. God, you're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You're really magnificent." I also want to thank the other leaders here at the breakfast, Representative Tim Walberg, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, Mike Rounds. Mike, it's good to see you. We used to sit there together a lot in the past. And former Senator Mark Pryor. And he and his dad and I also spent an awful lot of time together. And I applaud your work to make a more intimate gathering and bring him back to its roots. But I understand we got a bunch of folks at a hotel not far from here. How many? 1,300. About 1,300. They apparently are watching this. Welcome. Welcome to all 1,300. And the House invites you to come to the floor today, all 1,300 of you. No, I'm teasing. Sorry. But I'm grateful you're able to be join us in prayer this morning and lift up one another and our nation, And I want to thank Vice President Harris and Speaker McCarthy and Minority Leader Jeffries, and I also want to thank Bishop McKenzie. And Pastor, I don't know, I'm a little worried how you got this whole choir here. I tell you what, I think you've got well, I won't go into that anyway. But the incredible Brooklyn Tabernacle singers, I tell you. St. Augustine of my church, the Catholic Church, would say that singing is praying twice. And I can only pray once because I couldn't carry a tune in a wheelbarrow. My father used to, when he was in high school, and he didn't go to college, but in his college years had a band. And he could sing, he played the saxophone, and he could dance. And he used to say to me, "Joey, I don't know where you come from." He said, "You have no lip, you can't play a reed instrument, number one. Number two, you have 2 left feet. Number 3, you can't carry a tune in a wheelbarrow, but I still love you." Look, I've attended many prayer breakfasts over the years with the nation struggling in strife and also times of peace and prosperity. And I'm honored to continue the tradition started by President Eisenhower, I'm told, that for presidents to come and speak to the prayer breakfast. Just before Christmas, I offered a message to the country, a message that is to the heart of the Christian faith, but yet is universal, a universal message of hope, of joy, of love, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, or any other faith, or no faith at all. It speaks to all of us as human beings who are here on this earth primarily to care for one another. Look out for one another and to love one another. It's not always easy. It's hard, but that's our mission. The message is always important, but especially important during tough times like what we've been through the last 3, 4, 5 years. The pandemic has taken so much from us, from so many people. We've lost so much with one another. We lost so many people, over 1 million lives lost in America alone, 1 million lives lost. And they say for every 1 life lost, there were 9 significant people who cared greatly about that lost person. We've seen record bouts of extreme weather, claiming lives and destroying homes all across the country. I've taken more, as the Vice President can tell you, more helicopter rides this last year and a half than you can imagine. More timber is burned down in the west and the northwest and even in the southeast, the southwest, than the entire state of Missouri. There's just enormous damage. There's violence in our communities, like the mass shooting during the Lunar New Year at Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay. And Tyree Nichols and his family and the community in Memphis, their justice is long overdue. Look, in our politics, in our lives, we too often see each other as opponents and not competitors. We see each other as enemies, not neighbors. And as tough as these times have been, if we look closer, we see the strength, the determination that has long defined America. Look, as we look to the new year, my friend Chris Coons is out there. I see Chris. How you doing, pal? Went to law school and got a divinity degree at the same time. And he offers this wisdom. I thought it was really incredible what you said, Chris. You said, let's continue the practice of the ministry of presence. The ministry of presence. Being present not just for yourself, but for one another. That's what's expected of those of us in public service. The ministry of presence. It means being there for one another. But, there are those in the greatest need who look into us. They've elected us to help them, to really look at each other, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as who we really are, as fellow Americans, fellow human beings, worthy of being treated with dignity and respect. Because when we're present in our lives, we find there's so much more that unites us, in my view. So much more that unites us than divides us. And while we have profound differences, the last 2 years have proven we can come together to do big things for the country. We can join hands and get things done. We can redeem the soul of America. And what's the soul of the nation? Well, the soul is the breath, the life, the essence of who we are. The soul makes us us. It's embodied in the sacred proposition that we're all created equally in the image of God. A sacred proposition rooted in the Scripture, enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. A sacred proposition that Dr. King invoked when he told us about his dream for the nation. A dream I thought about deeply last month when would have been Dr. King's 94th birthday. Senator Warnock, Reverend Warnock, invited me to speak at a Sunday service at Dr. King's Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. It was deeply humbling. I've been to the church before, but apparently no president's ever spoken and given the sermon. And as in a sacred place, it was time to pray and contemplate Dr. King's moral vision and clear path. He talked about the beloved community that still inspires us today. And here's what I learned in my life and career along the path, as many of you have learned along the path that you've taken. We're all imperfect. We're all imperfect beings. We're fallible. We're frail. We fail. We don't know where and what fate will deliver us and when. But we do know what we can at our best do. Seek a little bit of light and hope, a little bit of love and truth. We know that faith and history teach us, however dark the night, joy cometh in the morning. And that joy comes when we apply the commandments of Scripture. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, and all thy soul. And love thy neighbor as thyself. That's the hardest one, I think. At least it's hardest here. Didn't used to be as hard. I've been here a long time, but it seems to be getting harder. It's easy to say, it's hard to do. But in that commandment lies the essence of faith. Loving our neighbors is also part of the essence of the American promise. A promise that comes with a new Congress that is more diverse and more different and more religions, more races, more diversity than ever before in our history. People of all faiths, some people of no faith, gay, straight, immigrant, Native American, differences that express infinite creativity of God, who is able to see his reflection in countless ways in different people. It's also an expression of the American conviction that our diversity is one of our greatest strengths. That's why Jill and I have opened the White House to celebrations of faith in our nations for Easter, for the Jewish high holidays, for Diwali, and more. That's America. That's who we are. Let me close with the question Dr. King asked us all those years ago. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? My message to all of you and to the nation is we go forward. We go forward together. Let's be the doers of the word. Let's keep the faith. Let's remember who we are. We're the United States of America. the United States of America. We're born out of an idea. No other nation in the world is born of an idea. They're based on ethnicity, geography, and so many other things. But the idea that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, etc. There's nothing beyond our capacity to remember who in God's name we are. We're the United States of America. My prayer for this prayer breakfast is we start to see each other again, look at each other again, travel with each other again, argue like hell with each other again, but then still go to lunch together. You know, one of the interesting things when I first got to the Senate, it was in the days when there were some very strong segregationists still in the Senate, from James O. Eastland, Mississippi, and Strom Thurmond, I go down the list. I used to watch Teddy Kennedy and James O. Eastland argue like hell on the floor. Then they go to the Senate dining room and sit down, they'd eat together. They'd eat together. I don't know how we do that anymore, but we have to. We have to start treating each other in ways different than we have, in my humble opinion. It's been the greatest honor of my life to serve this country. I know I don't look it, but I've done it for a few years. A lot of good folks, not so good folks, great folks, and a lot of folks better than me. Let's just sort of kind of join hands again a little bit. Let's start treating each other with respect. That's what Kevin and I are going to do. Not a joke. We had a good meeting yesterday. I think we got to do it across the board. Doesn't mean we're going to agree and fight like hell, but let's treat each other with respect. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.